I think my juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
We have a very special Law of the Wolf this week. You know it's big when I want to talk about recruiting. Me, Joe Giglio. I can't talk about recruiting without the expert himself, NC State rivals, Wolfpack Central. Jacey Zembal. JC, so what you're telling me is NC State's doing well with signing day coming up tomorrow. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I think they are. I think, a little bit of a bumpy road at different times, but when you look at the combination of what they're doing with prep players, junior college targets, and the portal, they had specific needs. A lot of them on offense, as we all know.
Right.
They needed an extra linebacker. They needed help in the secondary. There were certain things, and they feel like it just feels like they're meeting those needs. I mean, the most important one of all was getting Grayson McCall, obviously, to solidify the quarterback spot. But, when you look at all the portal gets a lot of the action, it's the bright, shiny toys, but it's still always going to be the high school players that provide the foundation. In a perfect world, you like to look at the portal as if you're going to the butcher's market.
Okay.
One day you might want the Reuben. Another day you might want the French dip. I know you, Joe, you like a good hot dog, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So that's what the portal is. You don't want to have, the portal build your team, though it has happened in a roundabout way when you look at what Louisville and Florida State have done. Yeah. It's a great way to turn around a program. But in a perfect world, you hope to have, say, a core of like 14, 15 guys. And then if you bring in 4 or 5 transfers that immediately start, that's perfect. Bring in your French dip. Perfect.
So let's start with the portal. You mentioned Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina. This is a home run, no?
I think so. I mean, everything about him screams he does 2 things well. He protects the ball, which we all know is important.
Yes, especially to Dave Doeren.
And he has a very good touch on, short intermediate routes, those 20-yard passes. He may not have the biggest arm in the world, but he's a tough guy. You kind of do worry about his injury history because in the best of times, he usually misses 1 or 2 games a year. And then this past year, he had a serious concussion that knocked him out for 4 or 5 games. I think it was 5 total. But everything about him. I mean, he's a 6-year guy. We saw how important it was, as I call it, having an adult in the room when you have guys like Brennan Armstrong and Peyton Wilson in their 6th year. Big difference in terms of leadership and maturity level. And it all starts with the quarterback. They were desperate for a tight end. So they get Johnny Jolly from
Whoa. You got to slow down. You got one thing. I know you're excited. One thing at a time.
I know we're talking recruiting is not your favorite thing to do.
I know. I just have to rein you in a little bit. So McCall will be a 6th-year guy. I think your point there about having that older player. Now this might be balanced out by a freshman that they're bringing in, but I'm kind of on the opinion I would like for them to get off of the 6th-year rolling quarterback carousel. But I think, to your point, maybe he's too good and too good of a fit to pass up.
I agree with that. And you joked about the Tim Beck factor in the past pods, but it even goes deeper than that. You have Chris Proctor, who was at NC State, forever under both Eli Drinkwitz and Tim Beck. An underrated aspect. The offensive coordinator this past year, quarterbacks coach for Coastal Carolina, was a guy named Travis Trickett. You would know his family or remember members of his family. Yeah. Well, Travis coached with Tony Gibson, the defensive coordinator for NC State at West Virginia, all the way back to 2003 at one point. So it isn't just Tim Beck. I mean, there are literally multiple people on the staff who could just pick up the phone and be like, hey, what makes Grayson McCall tick? and they can get the ultimate, scouting report or insight. And in a roundabout way, that's what kind of this portal class has become, is that they either have an insider's view of recruiting them out of high school, or they played against them. And, in many of the other transfers, State played them, and it's one thing to have film and to know whatnot, but you also game plan, for a Wesley Grimes, or you game plan for just the previously mentioned Jolly, a tight end from Connecticut. So, there's a lot of film that they already know on the guys that they're bringing in. I think that's kind of like a really under the radar aspect about their portal class, is that, there's one thing to some schools, they bring in guys and it's kind of speed dating and it's kind of a blind deal. And they may not know their personalities or how exactly how good they are. But, in this case, it's like, it almost feels like, State played Notre Dame. Hey, look, they got the starting center.
Yeah, it reminds me of when they got Joe Selfo from South Alabama. Joe Selfo had a great game against them, and it was like, hey, this guy's available as a graduate transfer back then. They added him, plugged him in, and he did really well for them the 1 year that he was able to play for them. So
he just got a nice promotion this past week.
He did. Shouts to my guy is going to be calling plays, so I'm excited for him. The guys that they got in the portal, though, you mentioned Jolly. I feel like at the UConn tight end, big kid, like his size, put up, decent numbers, but just adds a different dimension that we didn't see at all this year.
Zero dimension this year. The fact that he's a player capable of catching 58 passes. Now, will he catch 58 passes in Raleigh? Who knows?
Right.
But he's a decided upgrade. And tight end's a tricky position in the portal. It's kind of crazy because Louisville just got 3 of them. So they're kind of like hogging all the tight ends. But there isn't a big tight end market. I know that might be shocking to some people, but for them to strike fast and get that done before people even realize it, there aren't a lot of tight ends out there. Probably the one with the most upside is the one that played against NC State, which is Holden Stays from Notre Dame.
Yeah,
who had a big game against the Pack. He's an upside guy, but there's not a bunch of no-brainers. So the fact that they got Jolly, and then they went and got a junior college kid who is 6'6", 265, Dante Daniels, that literally the room was gone. Like it was, I don't know if Javonte Vereen's even really considered a tight end because he's essentially a wide receiver, but he and Reed Mitchell and whatever defensive end, tight end, Isaiah Shirley, whatever he ends up being, like that's it. That was the room. Like that was what left after all the players transferred out and so they had to start that position from scratch. So that's why he was incredibly important. We all knew they were going to get a wide receiver. By the end of the year, they only had 2 healthy running backs. So, I mean, there's major needs on offense to not just get guys, but get guys who have to play key roles.
All right, I want to get into the matrix breaking in the intra Big Four transfers. But first, of course, Law of the Wolf is brought to you by Hometown Realty. Look, I know it's December. There's holidays. It's going to be New Year's. I get it. You're busy. But now is actually the time to start thinking about what you're going to do when the school year ends if you want to move. The best thing to do is go to myhtr.com. If you want to get into new construction, the best way to do that is through Hometown Realty. Those builders are going to offer you incentives. The best way to cash in on those incentives is to go through Hometown Realty. Again, it's myhtr.com. You can buy, sell, and calculate. And then when you want to close on your house, you're going to need help to do that. Or maybe you're like me. You get random traffic tickets that you need taken care of. So go to Whitaker and Hamer, Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer. It's wh.lawyer. We're going to be doing a Super Tecmo Bowl tournament over at Josh's place in Garner. It's called Shady's in downtown Garner. So looking forward to that on February 4th. Big thanks to Josh and Joe for sponsoring us here at Law of the Wolf. And of course, there is no Law of the Wolf without Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. Hayes Lancaster wants to save you money. The best way to do that is to bundle all of your different coverages, the way to protect your house. Go to bugsbite.com. That's bugsbite.com. Take care of all of those pest and mosquito problems at your house. All right, JC. So The two most interesting names in the portal to me are not Grayson McCall. They are not Justin Jolly. Wesley Grimes is a kid from Wake Forest who is a receiver who they had recruited out of high school. And then Jordan Waters, the running back from Duke. So let me get this straight. State has a player from Wake now and Duke. When does the matrix break? When do we get the State to Carolina or the Carolina to State transfer? I'm chomping at this one. I'm ready for this one.
Well, it's funny. I was looking the other day. I think Donchez Styles has got like 3 or 4 20-plus point games for Georgetown.
He does.
They're not winning,
okay,
but at least it's proof that he has a pulse. That he's a good basketball player. He just got completely buried at UNC. Wesley Grimes. I like to think of him as somebody who, I wouldn't say fell through the cracks a little bit because of the COVID stretch,
right?
But I don't think he was completely appreciated his junior year. State was on him hard. Obviously, Wake Forest was. But I don't know if people understood just how good he was at Raleigh Millbrook. He committed early. He committed, I want to say, around Labor Day.
Wake had it running hot at receiver. That position coach had been turning guys out.
Yeah, it made sense at the time. They had A.T. Perry and Jamal Banks was just emerging. And like you said, they've had 1,000-yard receivers left and right. It went off a ditch this year because of the quarterback position at Wake Forest. But, when you look at it, like Wesley had a magical senior year. And that's actually when his recruitment really heated up. There was locally in the Raleigh area, people your watchers outside of Raleigh may not realize there's a local game of the week on Fridays. And he torched Braun one night for 200-plus yards and 5 touchdowns. Every time Millbrook played Roseville that year, because of Noah Rogers, Wesley Grimes, and then his younger receiver, Nathan Leacock, who's now at Tennessee, it was like must-see. It was a must-see game because of all the talent on the field. And Wesley delivered, in those games. But, State never probably gave up on him. But then all of a sudden, Clemson jumps in hard. Notre Dame jumped in harder. UNC started to kick the tires. And that's when Wake Forest really had to hold on. And somehow, some way, they did. He's the rare 4-star prep player to pick Wake Forest. Someone obviously I watched, off and on his first few years. He had a monster spring game. That was when everybody was excited. I think he had like 11 catches for 150 yards. And people can poo-poo what spring games are, but 11 for 150 is serious business. Then Donovan Green gets hurt. So, okay, he really has to step up and play a key role for Wake Forest. Got off to a decent start, missed a few games with injury, and then it's a combination. He's a true sophomore, and they just didn't have the quarterback play. They literally played 3 quarterbacks, 2 of whom entered the portal. So he ends up entering the portal. I don't think he cared, who the quarterback was going to be at NC State. He just wanted to kind of come home. And, I'm sure he lives like 25 minutes from campus. I'm sure that's where he grew up. And, I don't know what he'll do next year. I think he has the potential to one day be that guy who gets, 50 catches for 850 yards, 7-8 touchdowns. But as, State fans and as you've pounded home all year, like wide receiver was a major sore spot outside of Kevin Concepcion. And between him and Jonathan Paylor, you got to hope that, the 3 of them, Concepcion, Paylor, Wesley Grimes, all of a sudden that position has got a whole lot more big play ability next year than what we've seen recently.
6'2", 187. So we're not talking about like some sort of munchkin slot here either.
No, he's an outside guy, and he's not a physical bruiser or anything like that. This is not Kelvin Harmon.
Okay.
But what he does, the 3 things he does great, or at least in the high school level, and then flashes at Wake Forest. He's got great body control. He really knows how to high point the ball. And then what I always value in a receiver, and it doesn't get emphasized enough, but you need guys who can catch third down passes when it's 3rd and 7 and move the chains. Like, not everything has to be a home run. Not everything has to be flashy. You got to move the chains in college football. And what he has always shown the ability, and obviously Concepcion is very gifted at this too. They know how to move the chains. They can catch the 8-yard pass, and you got to keep your defense off the field. You got to keep your offense on the field. Guys like Wesley Grimes should be able to do that. So that's an area. Good speed, not a blazer, but that's what Jonathan Paler is for. He's the blazer out of next year's group. But but the room needed the wide receivers needed an overhaul.
An upgrade. Yeah, the running backs need an upgrade too. That's where it's to Jordan Waters, another 6th-year guy. Again, I don't mind a little plug and play action with some of these 6th-year guys, as long as you're bringing some people up behind them, and maybe this gives Raphael a chance to develop on a more normal scale than throwing them into the deep end of the ocean as they had to do at points this year. But Waters feels like another home run.
He's an adult in the room. I mean, he is the ultimate plug and play guy. Does it mean he's going to be an all-conference player or run for 1,400 yards? Yeah, probably unlikely. But what I was impressed with him, you and I have seen Duke off and on, and we see teams like Wake Forest. They tended to have more of a finesse offense. They tended to bog down in the red zone when they have to run on 3rd and 3. What I liked about Waters when I watched them against Clemson and then Duke against Notre Dame, like, he's a physical guy now. Like, he's mature, again, older guy.
Yeah.
He told me yesterday he put on 25 pounds since his freshman year at Duke.
At Duke.
Yeah, so he's around 219.
And they had a great strength program over there. That was one of the big reasons, the big jump they made from Cutcliffe to Elko was the improvements that they made on off the field in the weight room. So I again, between McCall and Waters, you're talking about 2 guys who are coming in right away to help a team that, as you said, is going to have some personnel turnover, and has a real chance next year. JC, and you've been texting me and talking to me about the schedule next year, and the more I look at it, the more I go, holy smokes, are you right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when the schedule came out, like maybe a month ago, maybe you thought Duke was going to be a hard game. Well, Duke got hit hard, and they got a coaching change.
Yeah,
that has radically changed. Obviously Clemson and Tennessee will be the two that stand out like sore thumbs.
Sure.
But if your debate on the 3rd toughest game is between Georgia Tech and North Carolina, at least in my mind, that tells you something. That tells you a lot. That's if that's the debate on the 3rd and 4th teams, so we just saw it with Louisville this year, and Louisville took advantage. And no one, I don't know, maybe people didn't even watch the Louisville Florida State game, but you talk about a team that had about 6 incredible opportunities to do something.
Yep.
That was Louisville against, I know everyone loves the Florida State defense, but if they catch 2 passes, if the quarterback doesn't, hit the linebacker's hands on a dump off to the tight end, like there was points right there.
Yeah.
So, to me, as you have pointed out over the years, there's certain years where everything lines up and you have to take advantage.
Yes. Well, I want to get into...
Isn't that the story of NC State football?
Yes. I want to get into the freshmen that they're adding to the class, but first, Home Field Apparel has all of your great NC State swag, jackets, sweatshirts, golf shirts, you name it. They have all of the different options, t-shirts, all of the throwback designs. So go to homefieldapparel.com. That's homefieldapparel.com. If you use the code OG23, you'll get 15% off. And as you'll see, once you order once, all the offers and all the discounts come rolling your way. Can't thank them enough for sponsoring us here at the Law of the Wolf. And of course, as you know, as JC knows, go to the Breeze Through. Get your lifetime refill tumbler. JC is the poster child for this.
Man.
All the time you spend at Carter Finley Stadium and PNC Arena. I mean,
let me tell you, Wednesday is a big Breeze Through day.
Yeah. Well, I'm the coffee guy. You're not a coffee guy, though.
I'm not rolling with your what do you call it? Rounded rounds?
My dark roast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, but no, it's a great deal. And then they have everything else that you need Obviously, gas, as I always often overlook. 17 locations, though. I just happen to be partial to the one right there by PNC Arena on Trinity and Edwards Mill. So go check them out at Breeze 2. All right, JC. So let's talk a little bit about the freshman class, which will actually be signed tomorrow for the first. Now it's the first signing day. Are we still pretending that it's the first signing day and not really like the actual signing day? Or
No,
help me out with my vernacular here.
It's the full-blown one. I mean, there'll be a trickle of kids who will sign in February from high school or junior college, I'm sure.
Okay.
Maybe not so much JUCO. The guys who need to enroll early, the guys who have to enroll in the spring, they pretty much have to make their decision in the month of December. That's what makes this whole month a time crunch, is that the portal guys have to enroll, the junior college guys have to enroll, and a lot of the high school players, they're actually enrolling too mid-semester now. So, to me, State's class right now is ranked 29th in the country, which is pretty good.
Okay.
To put this in perspective, Louisville is behind them. Washington is behind them. Utah is behind them. Like, all teams that were ranked pretty much in the top 15 off and on. Well, obviously in Washington's case, playing for the chance for a national title. But, some very good programs. Arkansas is behind them. Even the vaunted SEC is got some teams that are behind them. So I looked at NC State's class. To me, I knew going in probably in the month of April and May, last spring, that wide receiver and DB would probably define the class. They locked up Cedric Bailey, who was at the top of the list. He was obviously a major get, and then they held on to him with dear life when Miami came calling in the last month.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Tell me a little bit about him, because as I said to you, I would have preferred they went into the portal and got a younger quarterback who they could keep. But I understand McCall was a little bit too good to pass up. But if you could bring a Bailey in and potentially develop him, well, maybe they have the best of both worlds.
Well, I mean, it's a big ask to have say Bailey replace Grayson McCall in a year. But hey, if he could do it, that would be tremendous for the program. I completely agree with your premise. And I think others are talking about that more and more, because there's a big difference in year two with the transfer quarterbacks compared to the first year. For as much local attention as Sam Hartman and Devin Leary got, for transferring to Notre Dame, in Hartman's case, Leary to Kentucky, they got him for 1 year, and then the schools move on. Well, look at the difference when you have Michael Penix for multiple years. Obviously he could have entered the NFL draft a year ago, but boy, it was a great decision not to in retrospect. And that's the difference just from year one to year two, and you're, a transfer quarterback. In Bailey's case, he's built like a basketball player. As you can see, he's 6'6", 180. He's a tall, thin guy. I call his high school team the greatest show on turf.
Yeah, you said he's throwing to a couple dudes, huh?
Yeah, he's got the dream team around him. And, in a way, it's almost, I don't know if he has gotten his just due in many ways. Even as a 4-star recruit, a lot of times it's like, yeah, he's a good quarterback, but what about those wide receivers or, whatever. But they have a receiver named Jeremiah Smith, who people think is that once in a decade type wide receiver who is committed to Ohio State, but Florida State, Miami have not given up at all. And there's a lot of drama around Jeremiah Smith until he finally signs that letter of intent. Another receiver going to Miami, running back going to UNC, a young receiver, or a young running back, I should say, who's going to be a good one. So, all kinds of weapons around him. They usually blow everybody out. He's got, video game numbers for stats. He probably barely played in the fourth quarter, but what he has a gift for, he's not robotic as a quarterback. He can kind of make something out of nothing. Not so much like in a Russell Wilson, like run around all over the place kind of way, but just, different arm angles, the way he could just kind of create a throw on the run or rolling out. I mean, not every quarterback can do that.
Yeah.
And, I don't think he'll be a big runner. And obviously, State ran their quarterbacks a lot the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how much he runs. But I wouldn't be shocked if they were to get maybe that young developmental quarterback in the portal that gives Bailey some competition. Otherwise, I have a hunch that this time next year we'll be talking about who State might get in the portal.
Right.
So there's that
year-to-year proposition now. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. So Jacey Zembal, Wolfpack Central, NC State rivals. Go check out his work, please. He has a busy day tomorrow. He's got signing day official, and then NC State St. Louis hoops. So
biggest home game on the schedule, Joe.
Sadly it is. Before I let you go, though, my big question is at linebacker. And it's going to be hard for a freshman to come in and do that. But is this where the JUCO angle comes in, or did they get a different transfer who's going to help them on linebacker?
Yeah, so they're bringing in 4 high school players. And then they're bringing in a junior college transfer named Wyatt Wright. He's originally from Delaware. He went to Fresno City Community College in California. And then this past year, he was down in Mississippi at Mississippi Gulf Coast. He's kind of like that heat-seeking missile kind of downhill, see people, crush them type linebacker.
Yeah.
So he has some terrific highlights out there. I think, I look at it like this, is that you have Devin Betty, who's back and experienced, and Caden Fornham is going to be expected to be, quote unquote, one of the main guys.
Yep.
That third spot is wide open. That whoever it is, whether it's a Wyatt Wright, there's people talking this week about Sean Brown moving in from safety. But whatever they end up doing, that third spot's open for the Wyatt Wrights of the world, or one of the players that haven't, only played special teams, like a Jalen Parker or, whoever. I actually really like Kamal Bonner, who's a freshman who redshirted, but got his 4 games in before he redshirted, mostly special teams. So I think he's a very promising outside linebacker type. But yeah, that's going to be one of the things. Obviously, until they announce, there'll be drama around the cornerback position with Shaheem Battle and Aiden White, which, if they lose both, that's a big lift to replace 2 very good corners. Obviously we mentioned Jonathan Paylor, but he's not the only receiver. I mean,
right.
There was basically 8 good in-state receivers. UNC got, I think, 4 of them. UNC got 4 of them. State got 2 of them. One went to Notre Dame. I mean, it was an unusually strong year at the wide receiver spot in the state. And, State doesn't normally offer 8-9 guys at wide receiver in the state of North Carolina. So they desperately wanted Paylor, obviously, but they also really wanted Terrell Anderson, who's another one. Georgia came calling at one point. He visited. And then I don't know if Georgia just was like, you know what, maybe getting a portal receiver made more sense. But
yeah,
the flirtation ended. And now he's obviously going to NC State. He's a 6'3", fast, gifted receiver who's got a lot of ability. How much he'll do as a freshman, we'll see. But he should be a guy that is a playmaker down the road. And I just got to see 2 of the South Carolina commits at receiver in the Shrine Bowl on Saturday. One caught Christian Zachary caught a 42-yard bomb. Jamar Boston is the other one. He won the state title. That's the other thing that is interesting about the recruiting class, the state title part. I think 5 of the high school players that are signing won the state title, had their teams win the state title. I think 18 of the 20 prep players played for pretty good winning teams. Two not so much, but
can't all be winners.
But I mean, when I go through this stuff, I'm like, oh, this team went 13-2, and this team played for the state title and lost. Just last week, the running back, one of the running back commits, Jaden Scott, whose nickname is Duke, Georgia kid, his Stockbridge team played for the state title, first time in school history. This guy ran for over 2,400 yards. I mean, Jordan Waters will be a key piece, but it would be fascinating to see who ends up with them, whether, they're still going to, I mean, there's guys in the portal at running back that they still might get. So my hunch is that there won't be as much drama next year about trying to find 3 running backs, with 2 of them getting most of the playing time.
Yeah.
And then the third one is kind of like that emergency thing where they can go back to having a Zonovan Knight and a Ricky Person in a rotation, which worked terrifically during that stretch of time. And then the other guy I just want to give a brief mention to. Obviously Jonathan Paylor gets a lot of attention, but Ronnie Royal is like the Jonathan Paylor of Alabama. His high school coach used to be the coach at Louisiana Lafayette.
Okay.
Had been a head coach at Austin Peay and assistant coach at Mississippi State. So he has a high school coach who's getting him ready for college. But I appreciate guys who, play running back, catch passes, punt return, kick return, play in the secondary. If anyone looks up Ronnie Royal on Twitter, you will see one of the greatest one-handed interceptions in a state title game of anybody. Like it is just an amazing one-handed snag as a DB. And State recruited him as a safety. Other schools wanted him at running back. And it's I've never seen a class with this many punt and kick returners. Like State,
they need them.
They should never have that problem. I mean, obviously, Gray is a good kick returner, and Jalen Coyd handled it this year.
Right.
But moving forward, like State has more kick and punt return options than I can ever recall.
Yeah.
So that's what is kind of unique. You got a class of winners. You got some position versatility, which
all right, now you're losing me. Just stop, because I think they added some good pieces. We'll see how it all.
Can we get a good rant though about how NC State needs to beef up their home schedule in basketball?
Yeah, we can, but no, you know how I feel about signing day. Everybody's a winner on signing day. We'll see who sticks around. We'll see who develops. We'll see how it works out. I will give Dave more credit. He knows how to develop players, so it'll be interesting to see the world. Yeah,
signing days of variations. You know how it is. I mean, I'm watching what Lane Kiffin's doing in the portal, and it's like a whole different level.
Oh, they're going hard. They know they have to take a swing at it when they have it.
Yeah, everything about the portal is about NIL money. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, one player NC State got out of the portal last year in basketball was DJ Burns. Great job, JC, for transitioning for me. I have a conversation with the big boy DJ Burns on the other side. And JC, appreciate you, man. Merry Christmas to you. We will do this again. Maybe we'll talk before the bowl game to see who the heck's playing and who isn't. Maybe you can give me a Kansas State scouting breakdown.
They even have a roster left? I don't know.
I don't even know. So I'll put you in charge. We'll do that next week. Again, check out his work. It's Jacey Zembal, NC State Rivals, Wolfpack Central. JC, enjoy your Christmas tomorrow, if you will, please.
I hope underneath the Christmas tree that they can have like maybe bowl games in August.
I'm ready. I'm ready for them to go full Giglio and adopt my system. All right, let's talk a little bit of hoops. We've got DJ Burns, the big boy, right here on Law of the Wolf. Next. All right, joining me on the in-person Heister Automotive Group hotline, it's none other than DJ Burns, Wolfpack in the house.
Yes, sir.
The big boy. There's too many DJs now. How do you keep all the DJs straight on the team? Are you the OG DJ?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But, really, he'll just call DJ Horn, or he'll call me Burns if he says both at the same time. So he'll differentiate one way or the other.
I kind of feel like though you've earned the respect to be the DJ, and he would be the new person, and he would just be Horn, right?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it keeps you humble. So
okay,
I wouldn't say one's above the other.
I prefer Big Boy, but
hey,
that's the handle.
Long as it's something smooth and we keep it light,
it'll be all right. Okay, yeah. Let's start with the last thing that we've seen, which was the Tennessee game. So first of all, do you still know people? I feel like it's been 6 years ago, right, since you were at Tennessee?
Yeah.
So do you still know people over there and you have friends on the team?
Yeah, I know a few of them. Grew up around Josiah James. A few of them. I'm not gonna try and pronounce his last name. But my guy 2-5, he's pretty cool.
Okay.
I've been around, spent some time around him, and most of those guys I've spent some time around, and a lot of the staff I still remember and know. So
did you say to Josiah, like, why you gotta do me like that? Like, Hit a huge game.
I mean, sure. I was trying to do it to him too.
Okay. You show respect
on nobody.
by showing no respect. I get it. Yeah. What did you think of that game? It's a real litmus test for you guys. You know, Tennessee's a top 10 team, one of the best in the country, one of the best in the SEC. I thought the way that you guys fought with them was actually encouraging.
Honestly, I feel like going into every game that we can win. So I think we did our thing. We just didn't finish down the stretch, and that's something that we got to make emphasis on, is staying locked in throughout the whole game and not having those mental breakdowns at the end.
Is it difficult to add new pieces as the season goes along? You know, 2 weeks ago, you guys are over at Reynolds. You get MJ Rice. You're down in San Antonio, you get Cam Woods. Or is there enough in practice that you see enough of them in practice that you know that they can handle the transition, and as a team you can handle the transition?
I'm about to say they've been in the practices, so they pretty much know everything that we know. It's more of getting their game legs under them, you know. I feel like Cam came in and gave us a great push that we needed, and I think as he adjusted, it'll only get better.
You guys have shooters, but I kind of like that Herkama-jerk type release that he's got.
Oh, yeah.
It's like from the hip pocket a little bit, you know?
Definitely catch you off guard. You don't know when a shot is coming, so you better stay alert.
So, but you saw that in practice. You guys knew. I mean, I'm not expecting you to have scouted them at North Carolina A&T. I don't know how much of that you try to keep up with when you add a player. Do you go back and maybe look at what a guy did at their previous stop just to see what you're getting?
I'm gonna be honest, I do not. We do that in film with each other, of course, but on my own, no, sir, I haven't.
Okay, I'm just making sure because I was up late night watching your Winthrop tapes, and your mom, Tequila, getting mad at me because I was like, man, is this gonna work in the ACC? Yeah. She's like, you question my boy. That was the highlight of my opener, though.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would thought it would work, but I like surprising people, so we good.
What did you think? How did you think it would go going into last year? I mean, you started at Tennessee. You had a lot of success at Winthrop, though. It's not like you were somebody at the end of the bench scoring 4 points a game.
I mean, I knew it would work. That's why they brought me here, because they knew it would work. But yeah, I didn't expect anybody else. I don't necessarily pass an eye test initially, so I don't expect any respect, but I always earn it, so,
Was there one thing that you look back on in last year and go, okay, that was really cool. I like that?
Playing with Jarkel Joyner. And anytime I was in a little bit of distress, I knew that I could throw that ball out, go set a ball screen, and something good was going to happen. And I feel like we're getting to that point this year, but last year it was just automatic, I knew I had that help whenever I needed.
It does feel like, because I do think DJ Horn, I do think Jaden Taylor are obviously good players. You guys are running some different stuff, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the three across, one running the baseline, one up top with the ball. You get your Iverson cut coming across the middle, using you as that primary screener. I kind of like. I mean, maybe it was just the Tennessee game. It seemed like it was almost every set, but it looks good to me.
Yeah,
a little bit different.
It's a lot of actions out of that, so you can't really play it one way, and that's what we like about it. I ain't gonna give away too much sauce, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But yeah, it definitely makes it hard to guard when you have so many options coming off of different ways.
When you have the games like BYU and Tennessee against the top competition, do you feel like you learn more even in a loss from those games than maybe a blowout win against a lesser team?
I mean, you definitely want to learn through a win, but yeah, it's a little easier to go back and look at things that we need to work on when it's not so easy to get everything that we want. So I definitely think it makes a difference.
What do you think you guys need to do? You get St. Louis Wednesday, and then you've already played one league game, but it'll really start in January. Where do you feel like you need to be heading into league play to get back to where you were last year? Because you guys were in the tournament. You were in the big dance.
Just continuing to try and win every game and keep it consistent throughout the whole entire game instead of having a let up or a let down towards the end.
Did you have to say anything after the BYU game or even the Ole Miss game, like, hey, when things are not going our way, we just kind of have to settle? It felt like a little bit of a panic. Maybe not. Ole Miss was a scheduled loss, in my opinion. Anytime you go to a tournament and then come back and go on the road, you can go look at the records for all those ACC, Big Ten type games like that. The road team almost always loses. I'm not necessarily worried about that game. But the BYU game, you're ahead. I felt like you guys were in control of that game, but it was like they start making every three they're taking, and it becomes, it just felt like you needed okay, it's going to be okay. Let's get a touch here. Let's get a hoop. Let's slow this thing down and get this thing going in the right direction. Did that feel like something that you had to explain to your teammates after that, I guess is what I'm getting at?
No, not really. Our coaches, they did a good job of coaching us on what to do. It's more so our execution. We got to clean that up, and that's on us. We can't blame anybody for that but ourselves. The coaches always put us in great positions to win, but if we don't execute, it means nothing. And I think our coach gets blamed a lot for a lot of things that aren't his fault.
No, not Kevin. Never.
Yeah, he definitely does get blamed a lot for every time there's a breakdown, it's blame the coach.
Right.
The coach. Why is there no adjustment? But he's not on the court. He's not the one who's got to make the plays and passes. He's not the one who gets backdoor cutted. He's not the one who's coming off of those screens still trying to defend. So he's putting us in all the right positions. It's up to us to go get it done. That's how I feel.
Yeah. The group this year, the way that you guys are, like I said, the parts coming together. Has there been anybody of your new additions that have surprised you? Where you're like, oh, that guy's a baller.
I would say Dennis. More so, I just didn't expect him to come in and make the impact that he was making off the rip as a freshman. Simply because he's a freshman. We know he's capable, but, you know, he kind of surprises you when he does, things that freshmen usually don't do unless they're supposed to be one-and-done guys.
Is it wild to think that there are 60-year guys like you playing against 18-year-olds?
When I was a freshman and sophomore, yeah, you would have told me that. I would have laughed if you told me this is where I'd be right now. But honestly, yeah, I think that the way things have shifted in college basketball, it is definitely a little easier to be here now. So
older is better.
Expected. Yeah, it's more expected now. So more so than when I was coming up.
You had a choice to make last summer, and you had options certainly in the NIL world, and you're back here. So what was it about State, and what was it about your choice here that you were pretty steadfast in? I don't think we even heard a word about you potentially entertaining another destination last summer.
Honestly, it just felt like a family setting. I don't think it was too many places where they had a pitch that didn't have anything to do with NIL. Everybody just wanted to throw some money at you and see if you would come. I'm like, well, what about your program? What about your team? Who am I going to play with? And they're like, hey, here's a couple $100,000. And I'm just like, what about your school is why I should come here? And that was, NC State was one of the first and only schools who had an approach that had nothing to do with NIL. So that's what really sold me, because I'm not really doing this for money.
Yeah.
So
you have an agent?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, who handles all of that for you? It just feels like I feel like the NCAA, like people like me, I follow the sport. I'm not involved in it every day like you are. I don't understand the ins and outs of people who approach you and the different, like I'm sure people last year when you were playing well, when I say people, maybe other schools were like, hey man, it wouldn't be the worst idea for you to come play for us. Like, I don't know how all of this works, right? Like that to me is what feels like I really wish there was some sort of regulation to all of this in terms of, I feel like you should be employees of the school. I feel like you should be able to share in the revenue that you help generate, right? Like NIL's nice, don't get me wrong. I'm glad you have it, but it just feels like the players should have a share of what they generate. Like that's my opinion. So I didn't know how much you thought about this stuff, or because you're in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just talking about it. You're living it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that that's definitely something that should have been started, a long time ago. The way that they make a lot of money off of us. So I think it should have been happening before now, but I'm glad that I got the experience before I was done, for sure.
Yeah, there's progress there, and I get it. No one's trying to get you in trouble. We're just trying to have a conversation about how the world works, and you can educate me a little bit. So I mentioned your mom had come up and introduced herself at the opener, and that was I made me feel good. They go to every game?
Everyone they can make. My sister's in college now.
Okay.
So she has her own basketball games. She plays for Newberry College, and when they're not at her games, they'll come down every time they can make it, home or away, for sure.
But they're still living in Rock Hill.
Rock Hill, South Carolina.
All right. Does the car? We're not worried about the car, and she's good. Mom's good. We're taking care of Mom.
Yeah, Mom was great before NIL. She been good.
All right, good. No, that's a lot. Driving through Charlotte and getting here to these games, and I know
driving. That's
okay.
Pops,
Good. Pops is on it.
The driving done.
Good. All right. What are some of her critiques of your game?
Just continuing to be consistent.
Yeah.
She's watched
free throws, jumpers. What does she look at?
She's watched me play for a long time, so she knows when I'm being more aggressive than not, and she knows, when I'm feeling it, when I'm not. So her advice is always just continue to play through it, no matter how you feel, what's going on, and block out all the distractions that will keep you from being in the right mindset to be able to play to the best of your ability.
Well, here comes the fire alarm. I think that's our cue to get out of here. DJ Burns, I appreciate you taking some time for us here on The Law of the Wolf. You have a favorite spot in Raleigh yet, or a favorite spot on the ACC that you like going to?
Not yet. I'm still trying to decide. There's so many great things to do here in Raleigh. I haven't been able to decide yet.
All right. Well, I was just saying, if you had an NIL thing you needed to plug, we were going to do that. Make sure that you're taken care of and your people.
Go tap into some Mount Olive pickle juicers after your game, before your game. It's going to get your body right.
Mount Olive pickle juices?
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Keep your cramps away, baby.
Keep those cramps away. DJ, appreciate you, man. Best of luck rest of the way.
Yes, sir.
We'll be seeing you down the road here, of course. Thanks again to DJ Burns and Craig Hamill over at NC State. And of course, Wolfpack basketball, they have St. Louis Wednesday night. Should be an interesting game at home. Maybe the only interesting game they've played at home. That's disappointing. I wish they would fix some of those things for me, but we'll see how that goes in the future. Also, thanks again to Jacey Zembal. Again, tomorrow is his real Christmas signing day for NC State football. Appreciate him helping us sort out who's coming in and how they could help the Wolfpack next season. We'll be back next week. We'll talk some NC State football again because it's the bowl game. Who's playing? Who's not? What does it mean? What should we take from this? And what do we expect to see from Kansas State down at the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando? Appreciate everyone for joining us and supporting us all year. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you're following us on Apple, Spotify, the Googles, however it works, give us that rate. 5 stars only, positive vibes only. Merry Christmas to all. We'll see you guys next week right here on Law of the Wolf.
Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.